In this session, you will learn what are the 7 signals which decide who ranks number 1 on Amazon, from reviews to price, to clicks, conversions, and sales velocity. You will also see how you can use those things to boost your organic growth. Our guest today is Brian Johnson, and before we go into his session, I would like to ask Augustus to introduce the sponsors of Sellerfest Online, thanks to whom we're here today.
Thank you, Lisette. So let me introduce the sponsors of this session. The first one is VAA Philippines, provides trained e-commerce virtual assistants for Amazon, Walmart, and other e-commerce sellers. DataHawk is an enterprise-grade analytics for Amazon and Walmart sellers. VATAi is an international compliance for e-commerce sellers. They provide VAT compliance, EPR services, and much more. MerchJar is your AI copilot for Amazon advertising. Optimal AI by Sellerplex is your Amazon advertising analyst. Ecomc, it's your global Amazon, Walmart, and TikTok growth expert. And last but not least, Exit.io. It's a platform for Amazon FBA buyers, sellers, and investors.
And without further ado, I'm excited to have Brian here with me. Hi, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Perfect. So Brian, before we go into the details of you sharing how we could rank number 1 on Amazon and about all these different signals, let's first start about a short introduction of yourself. So you could tell us, what are you currently doing in Amazon space and how do you usually help Amazon sellers?
Yeah, so I've been in the game for a long time. So e-commerce for about 17 years, Amazon space for this is my 11th year now. So it's been doing this a long time. So most of that time, most people know from where I was focusing on sponsored ads, developing software solutions, training, co-founded an agency that's done very well. And about 2 years ago, and I'll say during that point, helped a lot of brands grow by my best estimates, it's about $3.5 billion in sales on Amazon. So I think hopefully by now I know what I'm doing, but I'm always learning because Amazon's always going to change. But about 2 years ago, I pivoted. Because I had a dream that if I could see enough data that it would reveal secrets of the universe to me. And I was fortunate enough that I was right, 90% of the way right. I was also corrected on a few theories that I had. So that's where the idea, as far as like, if you have enough data, then you can see a lot more of the secrets. And that's kind of the approach that we took when we built out DeepM. So the past 2 years been working on our beta, building it out for DeepM. This month, we are extremely happy that we're rolling out our app. Our users have been on Google Sheets each week for the last 2 years. And so it is nice to get to this point of transition, but we've had a good opportunity to build out a great track record of ranking products on Amazon, and then more importantly, defending that position once they get there.
Very interesting. Well, congrats on that. And we're looking forward to see what other developers will be there in the future. So at Sellerfest Online, we usually get straight to the business. But before I give the stage to Brian, I just wanted to say that if you're joining us live right now, definitely use the opportunity to ask questions from Brian about ranking. Leave them just to the chat, and we're going to address them after he finishes presenting. If you find this session useful, then definitely like this video to show support to him, but also to us. And if you're not a subscriber yet of our Orange Klik YouTube channel, definitely subscribe to see similar videos in the future that will help you to be better than your competitors when it comes to running your Amazon business. And Brian, I think we have your presentation here already. Are you ready to go?
I am ready to go, yes.
Perfect. Let's go then.
All right. So what I am talking about, of course, is the 7 signal stack levers. Now, I've thrown around different terminology in the past couple of years regarding ranking on Amazon, specifically organic ranking on Amazon. And so I wanted to go through today and talk about what those the 7 primary signal stacks the levers are that influence A9 and influence organic ranking. I am going to touch on Rufus and Cosmo because that is a very popular topic these days. There's still quite a bit of confusion. So I want to try to bring a little bit of clarity to that, but then jump into the core, the fundamentals of ranking on Amazon. So let me jump in really quick here. I will kind of point this out, and this will be part of the theme here, is to frame how pieces fit together. There certainly is a little bit of confusion in the community from people that have reached out to me, and they're hearing it's like, oh, Rufus and Cosmo are replacing A9. No, that's definitely not the case. They're simply just modifying how A9 receives the signals that it then uses in order to rank products for various search terms. So I'll go through as far as what that means. To put it kind of a short version is Rufus shapes the question. So it gives a new shopping experience for the user to take the burden away from the consumer, from the shopper, of having to know what search term do I need to do in order to get the result that I want, instead of having to manually create, do a search. Nope, that's not the result I'm looking for. Let me do a second search, a third search, whatever. It does a much better job of trying to be more helpful, more conversational with the shopper. And that means it has the ability to accept a much wider range of language and terminology. That's pretty much Rufus's purpose, right? And it's evolving. Cosmo, then, Rufus hands that off to Cosmo, and then Cosmo takes the classic keywords, it takes the Rufus, terminology, and it blends those together and say, okay, I'm getting all this data as far as search terminology. I know what the content is of the product listing. So I know that the intent of the shopper and the intent of the seller is here. Let me bring these together and interpret, okay, is there a match here? Do I have meaning? And then it all hands it off to A9 to then sort the products for ranking against the competitive performance and that signal stack that I'm talking about. So let me, that's kind of the quick overview. Let me kind of back up and say most people are familiar with A9. And there is only one A9. There's only one A8. There's no such thing as an A10. And so A9 is that classic where it is that what we call binary eligibility. This simply just means like, okay, is the search term that the shopper is using, does that match up with what the seller is advertising for, what the product listing about? It's got a little bit of creativity in that it will say like, well, the singulars and plurals and, some variations like that it can accept. But in general, it wants, pretty much a one-for-one. It doesn't have a whole lot of flexibility for different descriptions that a shopper may want to use. What that then does, so A9 was carrying the load of not only deciding what that eligibility is. Do I show a listing? Do I show an ad to the shopper who's searching right now? That's interacting with the site, with Amazon. It also had the job of determining, okay, what's that relevance? Is each of the product listings that this search term seems to be relevant to, is it relevant to what is in the title, what is in the bullet points, what's in the content? It didn't go very far. It didn't go very deep. It didn't really look at the images. It didn't look at some of the subfields, the text fields. It mostly just said, okay, the seller is saying this is what my product is about. If I see that there's a direct relevance with the search terms, that's where we started getting into things like an outdated practice of keyword stuffing. A9 hasn't needed keyword stuffing for a long time. However, it did need some kind of context until it introduced Rufus and Cosmo. Now, it didn't replace that. It simply just took the duties off of A9 so that A9 can focus just on the competition and ranking, the relative scoring, the relative performance of the competition, and not so much on the consumer side of the house. So because that shifted, A9, part of that was shifted off of A9. A9 could then focus entirely just on the competition and ranking side of the house. And that's what we call the ranking pipeline. So the ranking pipeline is we start out with the shopper experience as far as Rufus. That helps to shape what is the eligibility. It gives the flexibility to the shopper. It makes it much easier for a shopper. They have the option. They can do a classic keyword search, still works just fine. And they can also talk to Rufus and have a conversation, more or less. And the nice thing about Rufus is it has the ability to say, like, you said you use this search term when you were asking a full sentence question. Had you actually created a search term in the search bar, you would have thought more about it before you put it in there. And then maybe that didn't give you the results you want. So you went back and maybe you refined that 2 or 3 times. Amazon wants the shopper to stay, but they don't want to have them iterate through asking the same question to try to find the result. They're trying to get rid of that. They're trying to make a better experience. So what that means is they introduce Rufus, given the advancements in technology and language models. They use Rufus in order to interject and say, like, okay, for those of you that want to just use natural language, have a conversation with me, just tell me what you're looking for. And you can have specifics of, oh, I'm looking for this thing, but I don't want this, and I do want this. I'm looking for this color. I'm looking for this size, whatever the case is. Oh, and I want to be able to use it outdoors. It has the flexibility to interpret that and say, okay, I think I understand what you mean. It takes that. So imagine where it was previously, the funnel of search terms was fairly narrow as far as what search terms that shoppers use. Now they've widened this out. So not only can you use the classic search terms, but you can also use a variety of language, and Rufus will interpret that to say, like, okay, here's what I think you mean. I'm going to pass it off to Cosmo. Cosmo is now going to say, like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Let me see if we can find a match. It's going to go through and say, okay, you said this, and therefore I think your intent is you're actually looking for this because I've got billions of data points across hundreds of millions of shopping transactions, per second or whatever it is, per year. It understands human behavior better than we do, right? It's a really good poker player if you want. And so it understands that, look, there was 50,000 people who came in and did a similar search who were in your part of town, who had a family of your size, had the shopping and purchase history similar to yours, and 90% of them converted when we actually delivered these results. That was always the intent of Amazon, is try to bridge that gap and say, like, we think we understand based off what your shopping history has been. It's also one of the reasons why back in the day when there was things like review manipulation and forced sales and, gaming the system, keyword stuffing and that kind of stuff, Amazon got irritated by that because, like, you're throwing off the patterns of what we typically see. And it made it easy for them to detect, oh, this shopper doesn't normally buy this kind of product. Why are they here? Red flags go up, right? So they're applying what they know about human behavior over, many years of study, and they interpret what is the language they're using today. And let's see if we can match that up to what is available as far as competitors. So they then hand that off. So from a Cosmo standpoint, some examples of this is there's other experts that are talking this week as far as optimization for Rufus and Cosmo. Go back and watch those because they're going to go into a lot more detail that I'm going to intentionally skim over this to get to the search rank factors for A9. Because ultimately that's going to be the foundation that is going to judge whether or not you are ranked above or below somebody else in search results. And so for Cosmo, probably the easiest thing that you could do today is to make sure that you've gone back through with your listings and filled out every attribution field that you can think of, whether it's size, material, color, dimensions. Look at the search terms that have historically worked for your product. Make sure that you add those in, or that they're listed in some of the back-end attribute fields of the product listing. In your front-end content, start introducing some lifestyle descriptors. This is where things like ChatGPT and the language models can help you in determining, well, here's the 100 search terms that most commonly result in a click over to my product listing. That seems to be my target audience. what are some variations on the search terminology that they're using, or what do you think that they might be looking for? Whether it's intent, whether they're looking for, somebody may say it's like, well, I want a dish that's 1 foot wide. And somebody might, but that also means, well, 1 foot is 12 inches. That could also mean whatever, sorry, I'm American, so I don't know off the top of my head what the metric conversion here is. It could be a number of centimeters, right? You want to have either in your hidden fields or your visible content fields, as well as your backend attributes, a variety of these variations of both terminology and intent and purpose and use. You don't have to overdo it and say like, oh, nothing else matters except this new terminology. That is absolutely not true. It's simply just an enhancement for you to show up for those shoppers who choose to use tools like Rufus that then gets, interpreted by Cosmo as well as a standard search result. That all gets handed off to A9, and that's where the signal stack comes in. Signal stack is obviously where my team at DeepM has explored significantly, hundreds of millions of data points over the last couple of years that we've studied in order to reverse engineer how A9 works. The signal stack, here's a quick example. There's over 100 different factors or signals that influence how A9 sorts a product above one or the other competitors for an individual search term. So an example on that, just kind of a visual representation here, is the signal stack. If we were to simplify this, it might be a combination of what is your product rating compared to your competition. All of this is relative, right? So what's your rating relative to your competition? What's your price? What's your conversion rate? What's your click-through rate? What's your bullet points, text field? What's your title say? What is your unit velocity? What's your most recent or temporary unit velocity? There's over 100 of these things, but for simplicity's sake, the more that you can optimize and outperform relative to your competition, the bigger your signal stack grows. And the bigger your signal stack, size matters here, the bigger your signal stack is, the more it's going to affect A9 when it comes to organic search ranking. Now, ultimately, and I'm going to challenge you at the end here to kind of do a gut check, and that'll be my last slide, is to say, okay, I want to challenge you to go back and really confirm, are you chasing search volume or hype, or are you actually focusing on the fundamentals that actually work for your product? I'll get into that later. But ultimately, what I want you to do is to try to identify, and there's multiple ways you can do this. I'll go through some of these in an example. And as far as the stack goes, how do I build this stack so that my stack is bigger than everybody else below me, right? Now, that also means is that some of these you can overdo, and that will compensate for weaknesses you may have somewhere else. An example on this might be, well, I'll actually get into the actual, the individual stacks here, and I'll go through that. But these all have a cumulative influence on A9 and how you are sorted among your competition. Just as important as the new shopper experience, expanded shopper experience, just as important as what else does the system use, does Cosmo use in order to interpret the intent of the shopper to make the results more likely to be on target the first time they search, not the fourth time. And then all that gets fed into how A9 actually rates and judges the competition and ranks the search results. So you can take a quick screenshot of this one here. I'm going to go through each of these individually. But here's the big seven kind of grouped together. Here's the big seven. Like I said, there's a lot, but here's the big ones that come up most often. The first one is going to be relative conversion rate. Most of these shouldn't be a surprise to you, but I want you to understand some of the nuances of it so that you can understand, what do I need to do about it? How important do I need to focus on that? That's part of what I want to get across. Relative conversion rate is going to be based on the fundamentals of whether or not you can attack this a few different ways. Do I have an offer that is reasonable and acceptable and desirable by my target audience, by the shopper? Now, I mixed a lot of stuff into there. So you have a product that you're selling, and maybe you've gone through, it's like, you know what, I've invested in professional images. Maybe I've updated it using AI image generators. It's nice and glossy and it looks great. And I've split test my title. And I know most of you haven't done most of the things I'm going to say, but best practices as far as the fundamentals is I've split test my title multiple times throughout the last year or two, consistently, again and again and again. You should be doing it every single month. Split testing the titles to see how do I gradually increase conversion rate. Amazon split testing. You can do this as a precursor with other tools like Product Pinion and some of these outside audience testers before you actually create your listing, or as a precursor to split testing. That's totally fine. But definitely you want to continue to do some split testing in order to improve conversion rate. Conversion rate is also about paying attention to key metrics. Things like your search query performance reports are going to give you some signals as far as how you are positioned relative to your competition, where you are succeeding or failing in your in engaging the shopper throughout the funnel. Have you pulled up a search query performance report for a specific product that you have, you can see that it usually brings back about 100 top search terms for that product that get engagement. And you can see, it gives you all the data. The data is there where you can see how much visibility, how many impressions am I getting relative to everybody else, and relative to relative to everybody else, all my other competitors going after the same search term. How much engagement is that shopper seeing my product image and my title and clicking through to my listing? I can see my click engagement. I can see whether they consider it strongly enough to add it to their shopping cart. And then ultimately, how does it, do they actually check out? Do they purchase it? Does it generate the sale? For each one of those, you can see how do you perform against the competitive set. Your competitive set is generally, just for simplicity's sake, we'll just call it page one search results for those who are going after the same search terms and are actually getting clicks. So it's easy to go in. I shouldn't say it's easy. It's definitely possible to go into search query performance. And if you need help with that, reach out. I've got plenty of instruction on how to do that. You can identify, are the search terms that I'm so focused on making sure are prominent in my content and my product images about, and I'm advertising heavily. Do I actually have an advantage when it comes to my competitors? Is my click-through rate better? Is my conversion rate better? Is my add to cart rate better than my competitors? These are all signals that tell you whether or not, first and foremost, are you getting your listing in front of your target audience that will actually purchase your product? Or are you simply just going after a more broader audience that may be looking for a different product, may not be looking for the product in your price point, maybe you're looking for a number of different things? If you've been chasing just search volume from the keyword research tools, you're failing for your brand because you're not quite focused. It's a great place to start. Don't get me wrong. I love the keyword research tools. I love the 2.0 version of the keyword research tools that are out there that help you to optimize your content for a wide range of search volume. But it doesn't mean that even if you rank well on some of those, get indexed and rank well on some of those search terms, that you're actually converting to sales. So don't stop there. Take the next step, evaluate, okay, now that I'm actually indexed and I'm actually ranking for a wide range of high volume search terms, am I actually converting on any of these? Or do I need to refocus my product listing to focus in on who my target audience is, not just what is generally searched at a platform level on Amazon? There's a lot more I can dive into to conversion rate, but ultimately conversion rate is going to be the pinnacle. After everything else is optimized and satisfied, your relative conversion rate is going to be, consider it kind of like your lock. In other words, it helps you to keep that position so you're not bouncing around. Even if you rank, you go from a low rank to a high rank instead of falling back down again, because conversion rate is going to be one of the most important things that is you want to try to rank on those where you have a relative advantage on conversion rate. Again, you can do that through search query performance, and you'll observe how that is when you have when you're PPC ads, for instance. Oh, my PPC ads are unprofitable. It's too competitive. It's probably because you're targeting the wrong audience with bad search terms, or your offer sucks. That's also possible. But don't discount your product and its offer until you figure out, am I actually aligned with my target audience? That's also what things like Rufus and Cosmo are trying to do better now. And so the risk is not that things have changed with A9. It's about the shopping experience is improving to filter out if you are not aligned with your target audience correctly, you're going to get filtered out before you even get to A9. Unit velocity, not a big surprise there. How many units are you selling? My best recommendation on that is if you're running ads or running like, running ads or running some kind of like off Amazon ads, for instance, simply just test to see, like, first of all, are you getting conversions on those, on the ads? And by extension, if you go back and look at search query performance, when you are running, are you getting more conversions on your ads? Are you also getting more conversions, increasing your conversions on organic as well? So your overall, not just tacos, but search query as well as paid ads. And even if you just increase by 10, let's say you're selling 10 units per week through PPC, push it a little farther, test to see what happens if I sell 11 units. What does that do to my rank? So most of you are probably not paying attention to both the ad spend with the ad sales and the search sales, and then combining that with what is the end result as far as a search rank. You need to start doing that. You can bump it up temporarily. You can use, you can do a bolt-on accelerator. So this is more about recency or sudden momentum. You can over-optimize using something like this. That's one of the reasons why things like lightning deals, search, find, buy giveaways, some of these things work great as far as increasing your organic rank. They work phenomenally well as far as temporarily bumping up your organic rank. But if you haven't optimized the rest of your fundamentals, the rest of this signal stack, those are not going to stick the landing. They're going to fall right back down again after that promotion is ended. So you want to make sure you optimize as best you can the signal stack. Again, relevance. Am I optimized better on each of these compared to my competition? Then go back and worry about unit velocity and any kind of recency or momentum tactics that you may want to use. Relevance, of course. Relevance comes back into play, of course. Your content, your attributes, that all keys into your eligibility. That becomes a filtering effect as far as whether you show up. Your title, no question. We study this. We know at DeepM, we know for each product niche, we know, okay, in your product niche, your title has a 23% impact on A9 search rank. As far as content goes. Some other subcategory, maybe it's only a 15% impact. Your price has a 6% impact. Your bullet points has a 9% impact. We know all of that because we have the data to back that up. But it does vary from niche to niche. There's not a one size fits all. But in general, your title most often is your biggest influencer on A9 when it comes to a content field. And so you want to make sure that you are focused in on not just, okay, I've got 200 characters to work with. Are my target search terms the individual words combined into, natural language that you can use to speak to your audience? You still have to fit in things like brand name and differentiators and compelling content for your audience. But ultimately, the farther forward you are in each content field, like your title, for instance, if your hero search term is the back of your title, you're not going to score as well in your relative title performance for A9 compared to somebody else that maybe has that search phrase in the front of their title. Okay. Simple example there. Relative price band. That's kind of normal. It's very common. We work with a lot of brands like, look, I'm not changing my price, right? Unless you're working with, like, say, like a prophecy that dynamically changes the price for the sake of profitability. That we've seen a lot of success with that as well. But a lot of them don't want to change the price. That might be a signal that you don't want to optimize, or that you can't optimize, or you've already maximized already. So what that means is that you need to work on maximizing the optimization of all the other signals that you're sending to A9 to compensate for that weakness. If you remember that chart back up here, think of that stack. Your price may be immovable. Great. So how do I improve my rating? How do I increase my bullets? How do I increase my title relevance? You can increase these other things to compensate and still outpace everybody else that you're competing with. So that definitely is feasible there. Same thing goes with things like relative review strength and quality. We have the ability to see when a competitor added in 200 5-star reviews in the last week. Of course, they're gaming the system, right? We understand when they're doing things like A/B split testing on their title. We can see all that from week to week. So we understand what every competitor is up to every single week in order to know how to optimize on that. You may not have that level of visibility, but you can look at search results and say, look, let me start with the title. Is my best converting search term in search query performance where I have the best conversion rate advantage? In other words, my conversion rate is higher than the benchmark competitors. Is that prominent in my title or not? Right? So that's probably the easiest one. And where is everybody else for that same search phrase? If I look at search results, how does everybody else's title look? It's the easiest thing you could do today. Just do a search result and then look, where is my star, my hero search term? Where are those words in that phrase in everybody's title that I'm competing with on page 1? Really easy to do. Click-through rate. There's a lot of click-through rate. It doesn't have a direct impact on A9 when it comes to organic ranking. However, it definitely is going to affect how Cosmo is going to interpret the intent and the relevance of what the shopper's looking for versus what has historically performed well. And so click-through rate, especially on ads, is definitely going to continue to be, you're getting the engagement. So you want to be doing split testing when it comes to your main image and your title and some of your other factors, price, reviews, in order to always work on improving conversion rate and click-through rate on the search terms that you have the advantage over your competitors per analyzing search query performance. And then, of course, there's things like stability that include some of the fundamentals, your stock. Do you have stock and, are you running out of stock or do you have plenty of stock? Are you Prime eligible? Are you in the warehouses that are closest to your target audience or do they have to ship? That's the standard, geo ranking type of concept. So my challenge to you in this, and if anybody missed that and they wanted to get a screenshot, take a quick screenshot right now, and then I'll switch into the challenge. You can always reach out to me afterwards, of course, if you missed part of this. Or actually, more important is you should do the small investment with SellerFest and get access to all the recordings. That's actually your best option. But here's my, to be honest with yourself, challenge. Kind of what I was saying is pick one of your products, download that search query performance report for say the last quarter, let's say. You only have a month, do a month, go a quarter, do 4 quarters, knock yourself out for a specific product. Look at those search terms, do the calculation. If I take my purchases for my product divided by my clicks for my, I can see for my product, I can see what my conversion is. I can do the same thing for total count, which is my benchmark competitor, my top competitors. Compare those two. Which search terms is higher or lower? Is it a positive number or is it a negative number? If I deduct, one from the other, do I have an advantage? Do I have a higher conversion rate or a lower conversion rate for each search term that I've received orders on? The ones where you have a positive advantage on your conversion rate, lean into those harder. Optimize your content, run more aggressive ads, run search find buy or some kind of promotion that accelerates that. That is where you are winning. Amazon recognizes that you're winning and it will allow you to win more. And therefore it's going to then answer by showing up, be more likely to suggest in Rufus, more likely to connect with Cosmo. And of course, you'll meet the foundational fundamentals of beating your competition through A9 optimization. So my name is Brian Johnson. And like I mentioned, so I do have my platform as far as DeepM. If there's a QR code, if you want to do a demo, glad to show, see if it's a good fit for you. But hopefully you got a lot out of the 7 rank signals that affect your ranking relative to your competition.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Brian. It was very interesting. And I really like how you were highlighting all those 7 signals together and give us really a good understanding how everything works together as a system. Before we go to some questions you received from our viewers, I actually wanted to highlight the VIP package you mentioned a little bit as well during your presentation.
Yep.
So it's available for all of the Sellerfest Online participants. You can opt in for the VIP package because it includes 20 additional advanced expert sessions, also one from Brian, and you will not see them anywhere else besides just getting the package, and you're going to access the members area. And before I ask Brian to give a comment about what he recorded for you for the VIP session, I wanted to also highlight that when getting this package, then in addition to those 20 sessions, you're also going to get 2 great bonuses. And the first bonus is recordings from the European Conference 2024. So you're going to get access to all of the speaker content, which were presented at one of our biggest physical events we organize every year. And the second bonus material is an exclusive masterclass by Brandon Young about product discovery, validation, and AI design, which also has 30 lessons inside it. So as I said, this is all besides the 20 sessions you will receive. And Brian, you recorded a session as well for the VIP members. So can you give us a comment? What is the session about?
So this is about the evolving 2-part title. So this is one of those things where Amazon is continuing to experiment. Some of you have seen these. I do expect that it'll eventually come to fruition here. And the 2-part title is primarily going through and identifying how Amazon plans on splitting up the 200 character title into a first part, second part. And so that first part runs, the core main title is about 55 characters along with call it the subtitle, which is like the next 75 characters. And, then that changes your perspective as far as like, how do I optimize my titles for visibility and relevance? You're talking to the shopper. You're obviously trying to convince things like Rufus and Cosmo, and then ultimately trying to keep that relevance for the foundations of A9 competitive ranking. And so I'll go through and I'll talk about how do you actually measure your titles and assess, okay, I've got my 200 character title. What happens if I'm on a mobile device that only shows 80 characters? What happens if I'm showing a 2-part title where I've got 55 characters and then an additional 75 characters? And to be able to assess where am I placing the words that are important, my hero words, my hero phrases, are they actually showing up, or am I cutting off my audience under certain conditions?
Okay, very good. Thank you very much for the overview. And as we said, the link is down under the video, so we all encourage you to get the VIP package. And now, Brian, we have some questions for you from our audience. So let's take the first one from Corey. So Brian, for a brand new product, giving your comments, should we not get a dozen or so random people to buy it just to get started? Is it a bad idea? Good idea? Does it help? Does it hurt?
Amazon has continued to add on when it comes to that one. Generally, I don't do friends or family, anybody who's connected to your account, because Amazon can see that through your social media, through people who are in your same address, people that you normally communicate with. Amazon has the ability to, it's a very big brother kind of thing. But that's one of the reasons why they've put a lot of pressure, especially at this last Accelerate, of lean into services that Amazon offers for especially a brand new product of Amazon's Vine program. Yes, there's a cost to it. Yes, there's going to have an investment to it. Amazon is continuing to refine that program. What they're doing now is trying to align your product with reviewers, with Vine reviewers that actually have more relevance and more likely to actually buy your product, so that you're less likely to be dismissed and get a low review rating. If you took the time to brought to market, hopefully you brought to market a quality product that has some kind of differentiation or some kind of value proposition that's better than most other products in yours. And the Vine reviewer should be able to see that. If you then want to, that's where I would start on that, is use the Vine review. Beyond that, that's when you start curating. You could do things as far as, I wouldn't jump into something like a search find by. Obviously you want to use the correct service for that to make sure that it's safe. But you can certainly start talking about your brand and your product on things like TikTok, some of the different social media, just to get some additional interest with those who actually want your product.
Very good answer. Thank you very much, Brian, for that. So another question we have from Brian. What do you mean to fill out every attribute for Cosmo? Is this just the listing fields, or do you mean something different?
Yeah, so attributes are typically, so you've got, here's an example. You have in your, depends on which category you're in as far as how prominently it's shown. But on the back end, you've got attributes that then become things like specifications on the front end. They call it different things, so it could be specifications, it could be attributes, it could be features, but there are back end fields within your product listing where you can specify, the material is metal or wood or something like that. The size is 12 inches in diameter. The weight is a kilogram, those kinds of kind of fundamental specifications, if you will. You want to make sure that those are not left empty. Now, don't force it. Don't put in, a word that's relevant to your listing in something like, don't go in and say, what color is it? It's wood. It's like, no, that doesn't match, right? So have something that's relevant. Go out and understand what are some of the things that your shoppers are looking for. The language models have gotten really good at just saying, look, go out and tell me how most people describe my product. You don't want to put it in the URL. Just take your listing or take your competitor's listing, whatever the case is, put it into the language model, ChatGPT or whatever, and say, look, how do most people describe this? What do they say? How do they describe this? What are some of the attributes? What are some of the features, the colors, the weights, that kind of stuff? Help it to generate ideas so that you can just go back in there and fill those in. It's mostly about, if you never did it before, then that's probably a gap that you want to fill as far as some of those back end attributes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. We have a few more questions for you. So let's take one from Corey. So to summarize, Brian, if it's a brand new account and a new product with very low competition, what would you recommend to start off with to start the ranking process of the product?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, part of your research, you could use a standard keyword research tool like a Helium 10 or Jungle Scout. You could use a more advanced keyword research tool like a Data Dive, Datarova type of concept. Ultimately, in-house, if you're not buying into those tools, then and those are great tools, don't get me wrong, but they are more of the shotgun approach, the wide range. You can go back and say, here's the biggest thing that you could do is the technology is there now that it makes this job very easy for you. It didn't used to be this easy. Is you can do your own internal keyword research. If you've got brand analytics, you've got access to things like Product Opportunity Explorer, use that to see, can I get an idea of like, okay, what are products that are similar to mine actually getting as far as search, search terms, right? That's another way of doing it in kind of an internal keyword research tool. Again, go back to things like the language model. If you come up with a list of search terms and you say, okay, here's the list of search terms that I'm considering. Here is the full content of all my content fields on my product listing. You put those both into a language model and say, where is it in alignment? Where is it out of alignment? Where is there a disconnect? And what am I missing? It will help you to refine your listing. The biggest thing you can do on this right now is do the job of completing your full product listing. Use images that reflect your target search terms. When you're first starting out with a brand new account and brand new product, you're going to have some things that don't work efficiently, like sponsored ads, for instance. You ultimately will need to do a certain amount of keyword testing on sponsored ads. Focus in on, I don't want to say long tail, but don't necessarily go after the number one top selling search term. Sure, mix it into your content, mix it into the bullet points, but then use things like the title field in order to go after maybe some secondary terms, maybe not as popular, maybe not as competitive. Keyword research tools will give you a competitiveness factor. You can look at the search results and say, man, everybody that I'm trying to compete with on page 1 is prominently optimized for this one search term right in the front of the title. That's a signal that's not one you go after when you first start out. Go after an alternate term.
All right, very good, Brian. Thank you very much for going in depth with this question. And then we have one more question to end up the session with you. So, does Cosmo have its own inputs to insert data? And what about Rufus?
No, I mean it's going to be so Rufus is going to collect so like Cosmo is pulling more and appreciating more of things like the backend attributes and understanding the variations. So Rufus is more of kind of like an added on search field that allows you to get some additional conversational type things. When you introduce conversation to what exists as far as general search, a search bar. And by the way, Rufus is not going to replace the search bar. They may blend them at some point, but you can still use a classic search term, and most people are already trained to do that. Some don't want to create sentences and have conversations. They just want to search for what they think. They're looking for a brand and model they're just going to search. Rufus is going to expand the experience of what is allowed by the shopper, and then use things. It's going to help along with Cosmo in order to find matches to things like, well, what is your review history said? Is that in line with the search terminology this shopper happens to be using this time? Is your Q&A section, is your backend attributes? It's going to pull in more data points than it did previously in order to find matching relevance, and therefore it's going to do more filtering. If you get filtered out because you failed to fill in the backend search, you didn't go through and review your review history to see what terminology your shopper's actually using, and isn't that in line with your content and what your target audience is. These are an opportunity for you to go back and see, where can I align this relevance? Where can I focus tighter in my content, in my images, on my advertising, into my target audience that is actually going to purchase my product? That's why Amazon gave you things like Search Career Performance, so that you can see where do you outperform, so that you can focus on that target audience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much, Brian. Corey is also saying, excellent. I'll watch this one at least one more time in the near future. So thank you, Brian. We're also very appreciative that you took time to come here today and educate us about ranking. And before we go, Brian, could you once more quickly summarize what DeepM.ai is doing, and how do you help Amazon sellers?
Absolutely. So DeepM is we call it a precision rank optimization platform. It's a mix of competitive intelligence and A9 rank optimization. It is nothing like you've seen before. There's no other tool out there that does this. It gives you the ability to benchmark your performance on all the signals that matter to A9 when it comes to the competitive ranking piece of this. It allows you to see what everybody else is doing and how you're positioned, what you're strong or weak against them for each of these signals, so you know exactly what to optimize and how to rank high and then keep that rank once you get there.
All right, very good. Thanks again, and I hope to see you soon on our channel.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And now I would recommend to watch another video on our channel where you will learn how to use search query data for better rankings.